Go ahead, Bob.
Seeing it's 5:50, I'd like to call the planning commission to order. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Any changes to the agenda? Dave, Chad? Pardon? Any changes to the agenda? Look for a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make that motion. Second.
Jim, Chad?
Mhm.
Motion made and second to amend the agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Look for approval of the June 23rd meeting minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second it.
Motion made and second to approve the January 23rd meeting minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Maqua Detachment. Dave.
All right. So the first item on the agenda is for the Maqua detachment from the city of New London. So he's zooming into that kind of isolated little property there. And from what I understand, the old police chief had bought that property. Part of their requirements that they lived in the city limits, so he proposed to have that annexed into the city. And now that it's been sold, the new owner would like to put that back in the town of Maqua. So they've sent us a petition to do that. So as you can see, it's surrounded on all three sides there by Maqua properties, so it doesn't share any common boundaries with the city of New London.
Lee, do you have anything to say? Any comment on it?
I think it's a great idea to get it back. Should have never been done in the first place.
Okay. Look for a motion to approve the detachment of the property we had back to Maqua.
So you would be actually making a recommendation to council because council needs to approve an ordinance
We need two readings of it then?
eventually, yeah. But what this body is doing, you're gonna ask that the council consider the ordinance to approve the detachment. So
We
that's
need
what you're,
approval from the committee to take it to.
you're
council.
recommending that council considers this, yes.
So I would make the recommendation that we take this to council. All in favor?
Oh, you need a motion in a second.
Need a motion?
Also move. And I'll second it.
Motion been made and second to take the detachment to council. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. CSM for the First State Bank. Dave.
All right, well, the next on the agenda is a CSM. First State Bank is looking to combine 4 existing parcels to move ahead with their bank plans. They've already got me a site plan that we're working to get that to the Planning Commission for approval as well. So it's those sections up there. So it consists of 308 Lincoln Court, 210 West Wapaka, a vacant lot just east of 210, and then 214 Lincoln Court as well.
Anybody have any questions on it?
So if you look at that darker section down below, that little shape down there with that, kind of like an island with the 2 ends on it. That lower section of that property is not going to be included in the footprint for their project. That's going to be another lot that's going to be for sale. So we're looking at those sections, those 4 lots up above with a split on that bottom one. So it's approximately 55 feet, that bottom section, by the entire width of the property. So our IT person has looked this over. It coordinates with all the state guidelines for the CSM. So the zoning administrator is signed off on everything they need to do that.
Anybody have any questions?
Will this have to go through a common council approval or is this just plan commission?
Just plan commission.
Because there was,
Yep.
I guess just to reflect on Dave's comments there, the whole lot on that south end. That lot, I believe it was my understanding that that lot was going to be conveyed to the city. Possibly, no,
Possibly, no.
okay,
Don't know.
but we do call it an all lot on.
That's all.
so.
To be determined.
Anybody else have anything on it?
Any questions?
For a motion then to approve a CSM for the First State Bank?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Motion been made and seconded to approve the CSM for the First State Bank. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carried. Jay, I guess this one's gonna be yours, huh?
Yeah, the utilities is looking for a wellhead protection plan. We currently have a wellhead protection plan for well number 8 on Oshkosh Street, and we're looking to adopt this for all of our other existing wells. All new wells are required by the DNR to have this. This is protection for the city water system. So it's prohibiting contamination for the wells, certain parameters. Doesn't allow new wells to be drilled privately to protect that resource for the people of New London. So that's basically the plan in a nutshell. We do have a map. It establishes a radius around each well for that protection.
Anybody have any questions of Jay?
And this again would be another ordinance that you would refer to council for approval. Yep. So this is a recommendation to council.
I look for a recommendation to move this ahead to council for approval for the wellhead protection plan. All in
Also
favor?
move.
Oops,
Nope.
need a
Need a motion and second.
motion?
Yep.
I'll second it.
Mayor make the set first on it? Mayor make, oh, okay.
Who made the motion? I'm sorry.
Donna,
Donna,
And second?
I did.
motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'll be abstaining.
Jay,
Jay is abstain and Mayor Mark. Mayor Mark, sorry, we couldn't hear you. Mayor Mark, can you hear us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Barely.
Hello?
What is your vote on that motion?
Barely. With an aye, yes. Yes.
Got it. Yes, thank you.
did you say?
Yes, he said.
Yes, okay. Motion been made, carried. Living Waters, Dave.
All right, this is Living Waters Church at 401 West North Water Street. Everybody's probably aware now that some of these glass panels have been failing. It's actually the third time they've lost panels off that building. It's going to be too cost prohibitive for them to purchase new mirrored panels to put up there. So they have requested for a facade improvement. And based on the ordinance, what they're proposing would fall within the guidelines in the zoning ordinance. So
Are they looking for any grant funding on this project?
not that I know of.
What is that material? What is that?
It's actually a vinyl product. And where our ordinance wouldn't allow it on the main level, since that's on the kind of the second level of the building, it does allow for a vinyl product. So It doesn't look like vinyl siding. It's actually got a texture to it. So this is pretty much what the product would look like. There are several different colors. They provided two of them, a lighter one and a darker one, but there's some in between as well. But I think they're leaning toward the darker color, and I think it enhances the front of the building quite a bit. So looking for entertain a motion maybe to approve this.
Do we need to approve it if it already fits the guidelines?
It's still got to go through planning commission
Let's see.
because it's in the downtown.
I see.
Right here. Use of vinyl or aluminum siding is prohibited on the ground level and may only be used for improvements on the second story and above with prior approval from planning commission. So that's why it's coming to you guys tonight.
This
Are we
doesn't have, to-
able, I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
are we able to say that we prefer the dark? That's what,
That was their first option to me. And then obviously they're going to do what we want,
what
but
would
I
be
think
my-
they're leaning toward the dark as well. So
Okay.
if we wanted to prove it with the darker color,
I think Dave can relay your interest in the
Okay.
darker color, you know. But for now, you're basically approving for them to, you know, go allow them the vinyl siding as required by the ordinance.
And it's going to look good.
that's
Well,
kind of
I
what it's
mean,
going to look like. when
can't-
they're done. Yeah. It's got some texture to it. I haven't seen the product yet. They haven't got it in
It's
they weren't gonna
almost
order it
gotta
until
look
we-
better than what it does now.
until we approve
Yeah.
it. Yeah, I agree.
Well, I would make that motion to approve.
And I'll second it.
motion's made and seconded to allow Living Waters to improve their facade improvement. All in favor?
I-
Opposed? Motion carried. Hey, Dave, here's one for you.
So we're getting a fair amount of requests in for chickens. So we met with our attorney, got some clarification on the ordinance that we currently have in place. Chickens aren't allowed in residential districts. So we're here just to kind of talk about if that's something we might want to pursue to allow a limited number of chickens in residential zones, which would probably be only R1 and R2. I can't see a scenario where you'd have them at apartments or multifamily. But it would allow some of the citizenry to have a couple, 3 chickens if that's the way the planning commission wanted to.
There is noise that's involved with chickens
Yep,
though, and
roost-
I think we have to be respectful of other neighbors.
Yep.
I mean, you can't control when a rooster crows at,
Well, roosters aren't allowed.
Roosters would not be allowed.
okay, all right, but,
It would be for
Okay.
a couple, 3,
Yeah.
probably egg chickens, I'm
Okay.
assuming, just for personal use. They wouldn't be able to sell them.
Have you checked with any other communities around here, what they allow?
Some of them do, because I know I've been getting calls from even people with new London addresses that don't live in the city. And a lot of them allow 2, 3, 4 chickens. And then obviously in the ag districts, we allow them, but like I said, this is just kind of a conversation for the planning commission to decide if that's the direction might want to allow.
Do you
on
get
a
any
limited
com-
basis
Do you
of
get any
chicken.
complaints? Are there people with existing?
I haven't as of yet. There was when they have roosters, yes. And then obviously,
You guys-
if you get quite a few chickens, you would get some complaints if there was, half a dozen or a dozen chickens.
Sure.
A couple, I would hope people would be able to kind of keep up after them, but
know if we can,
This is,
can we just assume that they are going to take care of them? And are we going to assume that
Yeah.
they're going to limit the number?
We can limit the number through.
We
an
can,
ordinance
that, and I think
that we
that,
can allow.
in our
So,
nuisance ordinance, we could deal with if they're not
yeah.
keeping them up.
So a little background information. And before I say that, I think Mayor Mark's trying to talk. So,
Just drove in.
oh, he just drove in. Okay, we'll get him when he comes in. But a little background information. So in the ordinance, and Dave, do you remember what code it was? But in the ordinance, it talks about, there's a section that talks about you can't have any animals except 2 poultry as pets. And it says in there that it's allowed in any district. So if you just read that, and for years, the city staff have been reading that saying it's allowed in any district to poultry. But looking back at the parent ordinance, it talks about a agricultural district. And then the last sentence of that has, of the following. So basically that subordinance is basically tied to only agricultural districts. So our city attorney most recently looked at that and gave an opinion saying, it, by technicality of the ordinance, city staff have been saying, yeah, it says it's any district, but he's saying that, no, technically it is not. So basically at the last council meeting, he approached the council and said, all right, the ordinance technically does not allow chickens to be in residential districts right now. Do you guys want that? And the council did say at that meeting, let's talk about it at the planning commission to see if we want to allow that. So I think at this point, for the planning commission to have a conversation to talk about, do you guys would want to allow that in residential districts? And we would come back with an ordinance to change the municipal code to actually allow that. So if that makes sense.
And we do have some that have been allowed in the past, just probably some misinterpretation with the zoning ordinance from the last zoning administrator and myself. So we were kind of allowing 2 as pets based on that ordinance. And then after clarification, we thought we better bring it up to the planning commission, let them determine if that's the direction we want to go. So
So have we got some of those?
we
out
have a
there?
few. Yep.
So
Maybe a few.
what I was gonna say before, somebody asked about complaints. I do not know of any formal complaints, but following social media, I've seen 2 complaints or two people complaining. As far as you asked about how many we have, we've gotten an influx in the last 2 years of chicken requests asking about the ordinance and if they can have them. And if you just keep your eyes open while you drive around, you can see a lot of people are picking up this trend. That's all I have to say.
As far as the cleaning up you're talking, I don't think it's any different than the dog ordinance.
Probably not.
I mean, if you got dogs, you got to keep the pen clean and stuff. So to me, I don't see much difference in the dog or cat.
It's just another pet.
Yeah.
Do the chickens have to be restricted to the coop, or are they allowed to free range?
I
where
would, I
that
would
could-
say no
Yeah.
on the free range, just
then
from,
the neighbor would be like, hey, your chicken's in my yard. and-
Yeah.
and I
Chicken
think
is-
they.
And we could tailor the ordinance to say, those type of restrictions, that we would allow X amount of chickens and they must be contained, we could find something with that, or find another municipality that's got a similar ordinance and piggyback off of that.
And I do believe I read in there, it said that they had to be fenced. They couldn't be free roaming.
Sure. Yep.
I think.
What have some of you older people heard? I mean, I don't hear anything. I mean, other than, like you said, social media, that I've seen a couple, but have you heard from your constituents that
I had-
anything?
I had one guy, Fasco, over I can't, what street it is right now. He's just went the first street north of Pine Street or south of Pine Street. He's back of where Besaw used to live there. And he called me up, this was 2 years ago. And I was I brought it to the mayor, talked to the mayor. I was under the understanding at that time that you could have 2 but no roosters. So that's what I conveyed back to him. Now, whether he's got the 2 chickens or not, I don't know. He never said any more to me, never called me back. I just got and told him he could have 2 chickens. They had to be in a pen and he couldn't have a rooster. Now, what he's got over there right now, I don't know. He never got back to me on anything. I've never heard a complaint. So I never heard anybody complain about it.
I've also had a call asking about it, and I did say it was allowed under the pets. I think I talked
Yeah.
to Dave about it. And I said, as long as it's far enough away from the property line where there's no smell that the neighbors would complain about. And like I said, no roosters and, 2 chickens. I mean, I don't see it as too much different as a pet. Dogs can bark and cause noise too.
Yeah.
And if they don't pick up after their dog, there's gonna be a smell. So I think it's a good idea to allow 3 chickens.
I field a fair amount of calls about chickens, not a ton, but every couple, 3 weeks, I'll get a call, someone looking to get a couple chickens, so.
And complaints or
No.
just inquiries?
No, inquiring about getting them.
I guess I'd like to hear more about the complaints if they are, as to what some of their concerns would be before we can make a decision. I understand that it's like a pet and stuff, but I mean, I don't know if you guys are getting like complaints, and I guess I'd like to hear that before making that decision. If it's just inquiries, that doesn't really tell us anything for us to make that decision and send it on to the council.
I never, as long as I've been on council, I've never heard anybody come forward with council that somebody complained about a chicken.
And the two that I dealt with, I referred them to also talk to their alderman or call City Hall.
I've been here a year and a half and I've got 3 complaints total. Rooster that was growing quite often. Others because they were letting them free range.
Okay.
And then the other one was one of these little side streets down here. Just they didn't think they should have chickens. I don't think they were causing any problems, but they were kind of surprised.
So what did you do about the rooster then? Did you have
Made
to
them get rid of it.
They had to get rid of it.
Yep. And the free range ones, I told them they had to be in a
Okay.
cage. I haven't had a lot of negative on them, and I would think if we did want to craft something, we would want to have some language in there about so far off the property line. They could put a, chicken coop right on the property line, so. And then they'd have to talk about cleaning, maintaining, all
Fencing.
that kind of stuff, yeah. So they have to be either in a cage or in a small fenced area or something.
I would like to move forward and create that ordinance.
I think in the right restrictions, it seems like the people in New London want them rather than don't. So it might be better just to support it and just put our parameters around it that everybody's comfortable with. And like Mark said, recommend it to the council.
I can put something together for us to look over.
How about if you guys are interested in continue that conversation, direct staff to present an ordinance to allow chickens. We can look at, see if there's any other municipalities that have something we can piggyback off of. I'll ask right now, are you comfortable? I've heard 2, I've heard 3. How do you guys want to coin this right now? What
I
direction?
think I would want the municipal code to be taking care of these issues that you've already heard of. That there's another issue that's going to come up. As long as we off the fence, off the line, keeping them in the cage, no rooster. I think we need to be very specific as to what we include in it, because like you said, or I said, that something else will come up and we'll have to take a look at it then. And then we
Limit it to green space as well. I mean, if it's an apartment, just because we allow it, we don't want somebody having a cage and setting it on their deck and having 2 chickens when it's an apartment complex.
My recommendation of numbers would be 4
Max, yeah.
Would be how many?
max.
Okay.
That would be my recommendation.
Right now, I think dogs, we're allowing 3.
Think.
If this falls under a pet.
Yeah, they
Stay
grant.
consistent with that.
I think that's good. Yeah, we have to kind of be consistent
Mhm.
with it. If we're considering these to be pets, we have to be consistent.
I don't know that may fall under pet ordinance or people getting these to eat them. No, and is that gonna bring up another situation? I don't know.
The guy that,
Just a question.
the guy that talked to me the time.
You could have them
he wasn't
only be,
gonna eat
you could
his.
be recommended as only laying hens as well, then they wouldn't be raised for meat.
Well, I'm just saying, if we recommend them as a pet now and people are starting to butcher them, it can fall under some different problems.
I'm not saying that they are pets. I'm just saying is that it might be a good guideline for us to
Absolutely.
follow, because then they can't say, well, I can have 3 dogs, but I can't have, that's the only thing. I'm not saying that they are pets. I'm just saying that we kind of go with kind of what we have so that we have some consistency.
I'm just coining the word
Yeah.
and phrasing that.
Right.
Tie it up later.
I guess I would recommend not even coining it as a pet. You can
No,
just
I
have
don't either.
chickens.
Yeah,
Then whatever
I
happens
agree.
with them.
And
do
most
whatever.
ordinances I've seen don't allow butchering anyway, so. yeah. Want to take them off site, have them done, fine, or if they're just layers, to get a few fresh eggs, I think it'd be one thing, so.
So I think if you guys make the recommendation, you'll direct staff to work on an ordinance based on some other information. And then to your point, contact chief and see in the last 5-10 years what complaints the police department has gotten on specifically
I
chickens.
agree.
Then you can bring that back along with the draft ordinance for continued discussion at the next meeting.
So we're looking at three,
If that's the direction, if everybody's nodding their head, we'll
so
start
that
with
that
3
would
on
be
the
our
ordinance.
recommendation to go back to council to.
What we'll do is we'll draft an
Wait till next
ordinance
time around, huh?
to
Okay.
be brought back to this commission for
Right,
consideration.
before we approve it to go to council.
Yep.
All right.
And if I'm correct, nobody's out of compliance that has them right now while this is being worked on, correct?
We're just kind of in a limbo state.
Yeah, we're kind of in.
I have one that has 6 chickens that I just saw the other day. So those I would probably send a notice to maybe thin it down to 2 for the time being.
Yeah,
but-
they're out of compliance with what we recognize as.
And they were kind of free ranging as well, so
Yeah.
I will work on that.
Okay, this code enforcement continued discussion. Dave, what do you want to do on that?
I'm
Yeah.
gonna jump on that one. So we've talked about code enforcement and changing the municipal code with regulations and things like that. And the prior discussion we just had on the chickens is another example. When Dave and I met with our city attorney, just to talk about this chicken thing, we're talking about the municipal code and the zoning ordinance particular, and all three of us agree, and the attorney, I think, made the point at the council meeting the other night, our zoning code needs some major updates. It's just old, it's been piecemeal, things have been changed over the years, things conflict like this chicken thing. We're gonna need some major updates, and in researching that a little bit, a lot of municipalities have to contract out for that. Shawano just did it several years ago, they contract out. I know other municipalities do it. To try to do that massive of a zoning and, code enforcement update, we're gonna have to get a professional in here to help us. Even just going around the room from the last couple of months with, bringing in a couple little things and all the discussion. But we don't have the time for that. I think we're gonna have to bring a professional in for that. So just to let you guys know, Dave and I are reaching out to consultants to see what a cost would be. And then we'll put that in our normal budget request to see if that's something that we want to proceed with that. But there's a lot to that with zoning and just, lining up with state statutes and things like that. And, over the years, I think the code has just gotten messy in general.
That would be nice too. I talked with Dave as well. We don't have a ordinance for solar. We have nothing because that's a new thing that's coming too, and we get that a lot. Either he gets a call or I get a call about a company that wants to come in. It'd be nice to have a fresh new ordinance because those type of things, I'm sure even windmills would probably be put in. So that, yeah, I think it's a little outdated. It'd be nice to get some new ordinances in place because we don't even have a very good electric tariff. We're still waiting for the PSC to rule so we can get some parameters down for some clear residential solar tariffs.
Yeah, those could be a real headache. They start sticking solar panels up in their backyard.
Yep.
Yes, those things are huge. I could see where you'd have some neighbors not happy.
So for example, our city attorney brought up the point of, for example, Shawano just did their zoning code and they had a consultant come in. I can't remember what section we were looking at. But for an example, this particular company, I'm probably not gonna be able to find them right away. But this particular company they had a ton of great graphs, pictures and good pictures. Fencing, I think, was one we were looking at, right, Dave? Fencing standards. Yeah, so even this consultant who did this work, put in a lot of fencing information, exactly what, picket fence means with the standards and the heights and, the setbacks and, good examples. I mean, this is something I think would really help Dave and future building inspectors for, working on the code. So I think if we're gonna spend the time, I mean, we're strapped with staff time right now to try to do something like this in-house. We're gonna have to contract this out to get this figured out, so. We'll continue to research to see what some budget numbers are and just throw that in as one of our future budget consulting requests and kind of go from there.
And that would eliminate a lot of things coming back here to the planning commission if he's got it right in the ordinances. So he can tell them right out that they can't do it. That's gonna eliminate some stuff coming back to us.
Yeah.
Like the
And-
fence, like the fences, for instance, all them that we've had come to us.
Yep. And be prepared, just like the comprehensive plan, when you do a zoning update, there's gonna be a lot of feedback and a lot of workshop stuff with the commission, because you're tailoring that to what you want. So there's the boilerplate that they probably start with, but then a lot of feedback coming from this commission to say, this is how we want this is how we want that. So it's not just gonna be throwing something in. There's gonna be a lot of legwork at commission meetings in the future to do something right and get it to where you guys want to see it.
On the same note, I think we're gonna speak with the attorney a little bit more about our code enforcement too, before we make too many recommendations on either the property maintenance code or tweaking the ones that we have for the nuisance code and the housing code. So he wants to look that over before we get started on it. 'Cause he's got some, works in other municipalities, so he's got some definite ideas on the direction he thinks we should go. So we'll be proposing something here shortly on that as well.
A couple of months ago, there was a capital projects meeting and we approved some computer software for Dave. Did that ever get purchased? Is that part of this at all? I mean, did that help you with your?
Yes and no. Yeah, it's gonna definitely help with record retention and tracking and different things. It's got the, I mean, if say we come up with a chicken ordinance, I can click and it'll bring up that ordinance section. So it'll make my job a lot easier, and actually it looked like it was gonna be next year before they were gonna able to install it, but it's gonna end up happening next month. So at the end of next month, they'll have the software here and start some training. So we should have it up and running here in another 2 months probably. And then what'll be nice is you folks will have access to it too, if you want to get in there and look. Hey, I called in a complaint 2 weeks ago on 123 Smith Street. So you can go in and look at the complaint and where we're at in the, enforcement on that. So, and then any notes that I've, been dealing with, say they ask for an extension or something. It'll kind of keep a running ticker of all that stuff. So it'll have zoning, code enforcement. We can put, fire inspections in there. There's quite a bit of stuff we can track with that. All the building permits.
I was just wondering if it came with like a default setting of code in that software.
No.
You have to input it all.
Think of the software as more
They'll
record
put it in once we
retention.
have it, but yeah, they'll be able to go in and look at that code. But as far as designing the code, no, it doesn't have anything to do with that. So
The software is more record retention.
Yeah.
To help you with that.
So do you want a formal recommendation on that, Chad, or just that we had the discussion and we're going to do it?
For the code enforcement and the zoning, we're doing research right now. So that's fine. I mean, there's no actionable item right now,
Okay.
I think. I mean, obviously in the future there will be, but not at this point.
Hey, Dave, looks like discuss upcoming agenda items.
For future comprehensive plan will probably be on our next August agenda. They've already submitted a site plan for the First State Bank. So I've got to read through it a little more to make sure everything's there that they need, but it looks pretty comprehensive to me. So I'm assuming that will probably be ready for the August meeting for you folks to look over and decide if we want to allow that site plan to move forward. So, and then obviously we'll probably hopefully have some chicken ordinance language to bring as well for you guys to look over. So.
You do the chicken dance next time. Is it important for us to include other than just chickens? I mean, I don't want us to limit. I mean, I don't know if others are, if they're keeping other kind of birds and stuff like that, I mean, do we, I mean, I don't know do we make it a little more comprehensive than just chickens, or do we?
They got it for snakes. I
I've
mean,
seen a few
that's
people with ducks.
exotic animals. There's a problem we're having all over here about that all the time. About people having snakes and alligators and stuff.
I mean,
So-
like ducks and, what are they? Oh, no, it's peacocks.
I think you're gonna get into more of a noise issue then.
Yeah.
With
Peacocks, for
peacocks or
sure.
No, I'm just
turkeys
saying,
or-
I'm just thinking, do we want
They're not
something a little more
roosters.
comprehensive than just narrowing it down right to to chickens and stuff.
Haven't had any requests for ducks. I know some people
Okay.
prefer duck eggs, but
People want chickens.
Okay,
I agree. I think just target chickens for now. If someone's got a parakeet in their house,
yeah,
so
right,
be it, but there's nothing else that's outside.
right.
Ducks
Okay.
are gonna make a lot more noise. I think you're gonna have problems with that.
apparently don't allow snakes.
Yeah,
Which is maybe be a good thing.
That's, I mean, I've seen that pop up different towns around, ordinances on exotic animals.
Yeah.
Lions, I mean, it goes on. I mean, you hear of it all the time. So I don't know if that's something you'd want to put into this right now.
We'll
Looking
probably
at no
address that
exotic
when we do
animals?
this full
Huh?
zoning ordinance. We can look at that.
Yeah, thinking you might want to have a category for that.
So, any other agenda items anybody can think of off the top of their head?
and Dave, I was just gonna, if you weren't gonna mention the survey, I don't know if you're gonna say something about that. But so Dave mentioned that Cedar Corp will be back next month for a couple of things. One of the things I think you guys talked about that I missed last meeting was the survey. So it is live on the city's website. If you go to the city's website and scroll down under news and announcements, this one right here, Citizen New London Survey, that's going to help provide input for you guys for future improvements to the comprehensive plan. So I would totally recommend each of you going to the city website and filling out that survey and passing on the word to get other people to fill that out as well.
How many people have filled it out? Can you
yeah.
tell?
What's
As
that?
of Monday, we had 41. So I'm assuming we got some more this
First
week.
weekend was over 40, yeah.
Yeah.
I believe Josh put it on social media already.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure.
They're supposed to be doing a press release and is it called the Press Star?
No.
I sent them one and he said it should make this paper,
Yeah, it's in
upcoming
there.
paper.
It's in there.
Yep.
I thought I read it, yeah.
Good.
So,
So that's all I have.
Might be getting something about Swiderski's maybe, huh?
Swiderski is gonna get rolling, so they're working on the TID.
the developers agreement is approved. The developers agreement has been signed by the mayor and it's sent over to Seversky for their signatures. Off the top of my head for timelines, we were gonna close mid to late September. And that once the developers agreement is executed, that really kind of locks everything in so that we can start putting out the bid specs for that utility relocate that we have to do right off the bat. So we expect that bid to go out soon so we can have that presented, I believe this September or the October meetings. I think that's September meeting, so I think we're gonna get that out pretty quick. And then to have the utility relocate happen in the fall, but they start construction no later than June of 2023 for the downtown project. That's in the developers agreement agreed upon right now.
That's in the Press Star too this week,
Cool,
that whole article.
good. Get the word out.
Is everything going up, all right up there with Red Sloughs?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, it's going pretty well.
Man, that's moving along.
I don't know if anybody's been up there recently, but they're going to town up
Yeah.
there, so.
They haven't had any more issues at all with water or anything? Huh?
No, still trying to iron out a couple small issues, but I think we're really close to getting that all ready and set to go. So probably the next week or two, they'll have all those ironed out and full steam ahead.
There's a stormwater management plan that I think we got narrowed down now, and that should be coming to Board of Public Works in September. And that basically identifies who's responsible for what for stormwater management. So the city would be responsible for stormwater utilities that are in the right of way underneath the road and stuff like that, but they are responsible for the pond. The city is not responsible for the maintenance of the pond. So that'll be Board of Public Works in September for consideration.
But you got anything else?
That's all I have.
Discuss our next meeting date, August 25th.
Does that works for everybody?
Sound all right? Look for a motion for adjournment.
Also move.
I'll second it.
Second for adjournment. On the favor?